So welcome to today's session. Today's session is about how to revamp your SQL service with Azure Managed Instance. So this is going to be more about how we can modernize our SQL environment and then take care of having, or not take care, but then not having to worry about which version of SQL we're running. So I don't know if you guys have been following Microsoft Ignite, the conference online, what's happening this week. We'll also announce SQL 2025. And there's a whole bunch of AI tools built in. So now the nice thing between running in SQL MI is that you never have to worry about the version again of which version of SQL we're running and the features available in it, because all features that Microsoft launches in SQL Server on-prem are first introduced into SQL Azure Database and SQL Managed Instance first, and then they run there for a couple of months before they're actually introduced into the on-prem version of SQL. And that would normally be through a cumulative update that will introduce it. Right? So there's no more service packs for SQL on-prem. Cool. So just as I said, about Silicon Overdrive, we've been around since 1995. Started as a software house and grew into a multi-cloud managed services company. So we are also a AWS partner. I said software, the premier partner, and we're also a Microsoft partner with solutions designations for infrastructure, modern workplace, and also data and AI that we're in the process of getting. And then we're currently getting all our things ready to do our advanced visualization as well. Little bit about myself, been an MVP since 2012 for Data Platform, or at that time SQL Server, and that has now expanded into a whole other list of things for Data Platform around analytics, SQL Server, migrations, I did quite a lot of. So we'll be speaking about the SQL Managed Instance. So I have been using SQL Managed Instance since they came up with the idea, which was in 2016. I just happened to be in Seattle at that time. And the guy that ran it initially happened to be a South African, who I know very well. And he gave me access. And ever since that age, I've been working with Managed Instance and been helping the team with improving Managed Instance over the last couple of years. Some of the services that we do offer is everything Azure, all things Microsoft, so managed services, data services, advisory services, so how to develop a data strategy, how to develop a data governance framework for your organization, especially around regularity compliance and risk management. So that has become a big topic of the last 2-3 years. And then also architecture advisory services and training. And then training and workshops, we do hardware. So if you guys need hardware, give us a shout, we can help you out. Backup and disaster recovery. So a lot of people think that backups and disaster recovery are one thing. They're completely separate, very different things. So we help customers with develop backup strategies and also disaster recovery strategies. So that's backups is something goes down, how do we get it up and we restore? Somebody made a mistake. Right? So that's backup and business continuity services. Disaster recovery services is more around a 1 in 10, a 1 in 5, a 1 in 10 year type of scenario. So there was an earthquake in Cape Town, your data center went down, how fast can you recover? Right? And we actually do practice for scenarios like that. IT security services, so we all know that these days IT security is big. Right? Every day we hear about people getting hacked. So we do advise customers on strategies for that and what to implement and how to implement it. And then, as I mentioned, the managed IT services. So for today's agenda, we're going to look at what is SQL MI, why should we migrate to MI, and then ways to migrate to MI. So just in terms of SQL MI, right? So SQL MI is the full scalable version or full scalable cloud version of SQL on-prem. That's the only thing comparable out there, I think, would be RDS, but RDS on AWS doesn't even come close in terms of features and what it can do. You still have to hack the living daylights out to get it up and running. Yeah, so it's completely compatible all the way back to SQL Server 2005, like all other Microsoft Cloud Azure SQL Cloud services, are all compatible with as far back as SQL 2005. Right, so SQL Managed Instance has high availability built in, and it can actually do backward compatibility. So you can fail over backwards from Managed Instance. So if your instance goes down, you can set up a failover group where it actually fails back to SQL 2022, but on-prem. But it only works with SQL 2022. Right? But you can fail over, and this was discovered by complete accident by the engineering team while they were working on this feature to make it compatible, more backward compatible with 2016, not 2016, SQL 2022. For the failover process, they actually found out that they can do SQL 16 as well. So they took it back all the way to 2016, where you can fail over from SQL 16 SP3 and above. You can fail over to SQL Managed Instance, but you can't fail back unless you run SQL 2022. Awesome. So any questions? Just out of curiosity, is everybody acquainted with SQL Managed Instance? Do you have any questions about what SQL Managed Instance is? Have you worked with SQL Managed Instance? So you can put your answers in the chat window when they see it. Have you guys seen what SQL Managed Instance look like? Yes, no? Cool. So let's just look at what SQL Azure Managed Instance looks like. So I am going to get to managed instances. And if I want to create, so here you'll see you've got reservations. So you can actually reserve one for what between 1 and 3 years, 1 year or 3 years, and you'll get like a discount anything from 10% to 30%. So if you have an EA, awesome, you get even more discount. So for you, if you guys want to play around, and I'd highly encourage us, don't be scared off by this. There's lots of ways to get rid of this. So Microsoft, and this is for forever, right? So what is 12 months? So you can go and create an MI server now for a year for free. Right, so 720 vehicle hours, that's a month. So it means you can run for a month continuously. And you get 64 gigs of storage. So all you have to do is to go click there for the free offer. Right. So now suddenly we'll go and apply it on its own, and you have a free version of SQL. Right, so I can go and select my subscriptions unfortunately don't qualify for the free offer. So I'm just going to remove the offer, and then we're going to go through the process. So this is my subscription. I can now go and create my group. I can create my managed instance name. I can say where I want it. Specify. So I'm going for ZA North. So that's the data centers in Germany. So because of the type of subscription I have, which is sponsored by MS, I can't put stuff in the data center unless I request access to that, and that is going to take another while. So what we'll do is we'll go to one in the US. So I can then set up multiple instance pools, right? So you guys know what instance pools are? I can pull a whole bunch of instances and your resources together. So I'm going to say no. So here is the important part, and this is how we're going to actually get rid of mostly that cost. So click on configure, and I general purpose. You do not want business critical at this time unless your application is extremely business critical and you have the budget for it. So general purpose, you get one instance, you can then configure it. So we're doing a GP instance now. And for our business critical instances, 4 instances of MI. So one is readable, so it's got a high availability built in and pre-configured already. For those of you that are familiar with SQL high availability, sorry. So you can then set that up. So that comes with it. That's you get one instance that's read only, so all your reports and stuff automatically then redirected there. You can just that's configured, so you can do that with your reports. If something happens from a BC point of view, where your application, when you run a BC tier, your instance goes down, it comes up in another region. Right. So each region, so ZA North is a region. Each region is made up of 7 to 8 data centers. Right. So they spread across Joburg. And then if all else fails, it just fails over to Cape Town, to ZA West. And to get your stuff into ZA West, you need to be whitelisted by Microsoft because of the huge demand to be in Cape Town. So when you set up this, enable this, the next gen. Right? So next gen means that the things that are in preview now, you'll get enabled. But the one thing that is in there is the ability to choose your IOs. So your IOs, currently, your IOs are linked to the amount of CPUs that you have and memory. And your memory is calculated, I think, at 5.7 gigs per CPU. And then obviously the amount of CPUs that you have. But if you enable the next general purpose, you'll be able to isolate your IO so that you can configure that completely separately. And that will just be based on also on your memory, but you can at least, there's a slider, you can choose what you want that suits your application. Cool. So now here's the interesting part, right? So the licensing part, so you can go pay as you go, and that's the price that you get. Right, for you guys that have Azure EAs, if you have an EA, in there is something called Azure Hybrid Benefit, right? Which is one of my favorites. I go click, yes, I have. I actually have that licenses. So suddenly you'll see once I configure it, that this price will drop immensely. And then there's also hybrid failover rights. So if you are running, if you have software assurance, right? So this hybrid benefit, if you have software assurance, the hybrid benefit and the hybrid failover benefit and the Azure hybrid benefit. Right? If you have software assurance, you get this too. Right? So you can go, and the hybrid failover benefit means, yes, I have software assurance. I can go and spin up a managed instance in Azure and not pay for the SQL license because I'm only using it for failover purposes. Right? So no report is going to read against it. It's just that if we fail over if our server on-prem goes down, it will automatically then fail over into the managed instance, and we can just run from there until we're ready to fall back. But be careful if you're using this, right? Because if you're failing over a SQL 2016 instance, so 2016, 2017, 2019 instance, you will not be able to fail back to your on-prem version. only if you're using SQL 22 and higher. So I'm going to go with the hybrid benefit. I can say yes, I can, because I've got software assurance, and I'm going to choose which hardware I want to use. So you've got standard, premium, and the premium seems to be memory optimized, right? So you've got memory optimized tables, then obviously the last one is for you. But now, the kicker with this is that this next gen, all the new stuff, only works on the premium series. And so you're going to have to choose premium series. And now I am going to go choose, I want 4 cores and the lowest I can choose. So I see it. Here's my, I can choose my IOPS, right? So you go here, you can see what's the maximum. So you can go only, you can choose there. But you can also see how that price is running up, right? So per IOP is 81 cents. So I've got 6,400 IOP selected, which is the max. That's I can slide that back down and say, okay, I only want 768. It's going to cost me 7. I can always come back for that and enable that. That's a 256. I can go change my storage down to 32, which means I don't pay for my storage. I pay my anymore. Because the first 32 is always free. No, let's just go with 256. Then my backup redundancy, do I want geos out? So I'll just leave it at that. And now you can say I brought it down from 26,000 to 11,500 a month. Right? But I can go one step further, right? And I say apply. So now my instance is configured. And now I can say use spouse. And hopefully we get some applications that still use SQL logins or SQL authentication. Or I can just go and use just preferably Intra, which is basically AD authentication on Prem. That we're just going to use SQL authentication for support. So let's start that demo one. I'm not going to networking, so you can select an existing unit. So I'm just going to create a new one because I can pay that. So here's the other thing. That's if you're going to enable it if you're going to want people to access it publicly, then you can enable it here. And allow access from Azure services, the internet or no access. Just say internet. And then you TLS version, make sure that your applications are is compatible with version 1.2 of TLS. So in security, so you can add in Microsoft Defender for SQL for free, at least for a month. And then you can also encrypt using TDE, so you can set that up. So just a service managed key. So Microsoft will manage that, or you can bring your own key. And then you can use something like Azure Key Vault. And then you can do your collation settings, you can do your time zones. you can also set your maintenance window. That's Microsoft. When they do maintenance, they can do, you then basically give them permission to do between 5 and 8 million. And then here, so from an update policy point of view, that you can go and select, which, how you want your updates. Do you want to be always up to date, or do you want only compatibility to SQL 2022 and only updates related to that? Right, so we're going to choose always up to date so that we don't have to worry about stuff. So now I've got that set. Got everything configured. Now we can go create. That is very important. That's might take up to 6 hours to provision. So now it's initializing deployment, but what you want here is to actually click on this. Right. So this, I advise you to go and save it. So if you guys are using DevOps, your DevOps processes and stuff, you can then deploy this script. You can go and deploy that JSON script using your DevOps processes. But that is repeatable. So if it goes down, if there's ever a case where you need to deploy everything again from scratch, you have the script and you can just deploy. From for you guys that work for Microsoft consultancies, it's a requirement from Microsoft. So when you go through any partnership with Microsoft or level up from a tiering perspective, that you need to be able to show that you can redeploy, you are using repeatable scripts and able to show that you can redeploy things, right? From Azure and your resources. So that's fine. So cool. So anybody have questions thus far? So we'll continue. So everybody now knows how to deploy a managed instance. So that's going to run for about 6 hours. But I know the team is working on it to get it down to 20 minutes. So in some cases, it will go down to 20. It will actually provision in 20 minutes. But so just from the portal, things that you can do. So that's I've got databases already on there. So here's a nice feature. So that whole 11,500 rand cost that you saw there. Vincent, great question. That's a Vincent question is, why does it take so long to deploy? Cool. The reason it takes so long to deploy is SQL managed instance doesn't run on the front end of Azure, like all the other services. It actually runs on on Microsoft's own backbone. That's when you provision a SQL managed instance, it actually has to go and deploy a physical cluster for you, and then rebuild and then build your managed instance on top of that. So that's why it's not accessible outside of Azure. So you still have to go configure your network and peer it with other networks within Azure, so it can actually access it, as well as with your on-prem data, your on-prem network. But it's mostly because it has to go and deploy a physical cluster, actual tin in the backend. So that's why it takes a lot. Right. So as I said, they hope that answers your question. Um, so from a cost perspective, right? So yes, you guys saw that the one that we just provisioned is going to cost about 11,500 rand a month. It has finally, and I'm glad it's not in preview anymore. Right? It's this button here. So if you're only running your server from 8 to 5, then you can stop it. Right? And so you can stop your server. So stop and start your server. That's something you only pay for the storage and for nothing else. So you can set up a stop-start schedule here and select the time zone, and you can tell it when you want it. So if I want South African time, I want to say let's schedule item. So you can set up for every day. Right, start time. In, 5 p.m. Right. And then I can go create a data start again on a Tuesday and all that good stuff. And then I can say, hi. And I've successfully put the schedule there. Right. And then DTC and all those things, I can enable that, or that is, you can disable it here. So for your older applications that still uses DTC, SQL supports that. You can set up the security for it and the networking as well. We can say thank you to Standard Bank for having that fast tracks because of the amount of money that they spend with Microsoft. Cool. And this is just your maintenance window. Right, so what you configured earlier, stop start, and your enter ID, you can see your databases here. And then your backups. Right. So how backups work in SQL Managed Instances, so it uses a feature called SQL Managed Backups. It's built into SQL on-prem. People just have to use it and it will solve the backup issues, especially around time windows. Right? Because Ruben, for location, my location, where are you at Pretoria? That was the time zone. What is them selected, not the location. My location for my services are in Europe. Um, so use a SQL. So the backups uses a feature called SQL Managed Backups. So every 5 megs of data, if you have that enabled, use pointer to blob storage account, and every 5 megs of data, SQL will send through that data. So you always have backups, and you can do point-in-time restores very quickly. And then it's just a networking SQL Defender. Should have it on. So this is basically catches the security and also looks at what's wrong with your SQL server and what you need to do to access it, to fix problems. Right? And then we'll do a whole bunch of vulnerability stuff, testing as well. So see what you're doing wrong in terms of best practice and what you need to do to fix it. And then it also tells you, here's the script to go and fix. Copy it, run it, and fix it. And it will tell you what your database is, which ones are healthy, which ones are unhealthy, and what you need to fix it there. And then there's just all your diagnostic stuff in here. And you can then also create trust groups. That's if I have so I need to wait for that other one to finish. But I then can create a resource group and say, okay, once that other one comes online, it will allow me to select it in here, and I then can basically create a failover group. So if something happens to that server, my databases will fail over to the server and will run here. Cool. Okay. So let's go back to this. Okay, so ways to migrate from your on-prem server to SQL managed instance. So there's the old proven way, which is backup and restore. That's you've got loads of time on your hands. You are, yeah, it's just leave it that you've got time on your hands. That's what you'll do is you'll essentially dump your SQL server, your databases, and then restore it within SQL. You guys are interested, they finally changed the splash screen of SSMS to blue and it looks pretty. So you can download if you download the preview version. Cool. So if I want to backup, use the backup and restore method for my database, I can do this. Go backup, and instead of choosing disk, I choose URL. Right, so I'm going to send it to Azure Blob Storage. Just going to say, so you can set up your encryption stuff. You guys know that stuff. And then you can obviously backup that, restore that way again. So once that is done, because I have backups already, and you can use SSMS. So obviously connect to your SQL server, to your MI server. You guys can see the look feel is the exact same as it is there. So I've got databases restoring that. I'll show the demo for that. But if I want to do this, restore database, your device, URL add. So now you sign in with your Azure account. So now it picks up a subscription. That's what will give you a whole list of whatever subscriptions you have. I'm going to go and select my storage account. And then I can go and but select my container. I can create a credential. I can say, okay. that again. So now it will open up the containers, and voila. Right, there's my backups. So that is one way of doing it, and you can script it to do multiple backups, obviously. But that's a long, tedious way. And something we used to do. I don't know if you guys still use it to migrate, but that's one way. Next, MI link. Cool. Have anybody heard of it? MI link yet? Or use it? If you've used it, I'll give you a medal. Seriously. Cool. Cool. So SQL Managed Instance Link was introduced a while back, and it allows you to directly move your stuff into SQL MI from SMS on-prem in one go, direct connection, like from your SQL server. So we're going to do that now. And I really, really like this feature a lot. But if I can get it to work, I'll be even happier. And I'll get to that as well. Cool. So what you want to do is you right click on the database, SQL Azure Managed Instance Link, you say new. So you go to the motion. So this is something similar to when you go set up SQL High Availability, you go set that up. And so maybe no. Cool. That's a bi-directional failover, like I mentioned earlier. So you require SQL 2022 for that. So we're going to go to that. Next, same requirements as for MI. I will go rerun some checks and stuff. Cool. But now, for your databases, you need a full backup, full recovery mode, same as HA when you set up HA. Right? I'm going to go do that. So the other thing that's here that you're not going to get, that you don't get in MI or in high availability, is it will check for your database correlation. That's that your correlation is the same. It shouldn't be an issue, but sometimes it just doesn't want to run further. Cool. So now you're going to add a secondary server. That's going to just require to sign in, but it should pick it up that I'm signed in already. Cool. See, so it picks it up my managed instance that I have there. Or the resource group, at least I can go there. I don't have that managed instance still busy deploying, right? So we're going to deploy to another managed instance. So it picks up there. So if you have a public endpoint, it will do that. Let's integration. Always click this, otherwise it won't connect. Cool. So I can say if success went cool. Okay, now it's going to add my secondary. So I'm gonna have to do a manual failover, but that's fine. So now it's going to go through this motion. It's going to check everything for me and see if everything is fine. Cool. So that database is already being used. It's in the middle of a restore. It's going to take another. It's also in the middle of a restore. Show you why. Because of the other methods that I've been trying, that I'm going to show you now in the next couple of minutes. Nice. All the database that I'm using. Let's just do this. It's a backup. And the next. Is definitely something more. It's from scratch. All servers ready. Anybody have any questions so far? Or more questions? There's something wrong with the SMS. Anyways, so if you're using this, you will not get further than this with it, even if everything is green, because there is actually an issue. There's actually an issue, a bug inside of SSMS with managed instance link that prevents it from going forward. So I raised this with the engineering team in August already, and they still haven't fixed it. I got told this afternoon that they don't have any resources at the moment available to look at this, but it will be fixed in the coming months. Sad, but true. Boom. Next slide. So do you guys understand MI link? So just to recap, MI link, you can use a failover, there's a cost recovery scenarios, business continuity, and also if you want to migrate. So database migration services. Has anybody used this before? It's inside Azure. It allows you to migrate up to 20 databases at a time. There's no DB size limit. Anything from SQL 2008 onwards. It supports offline and online modes. It does require you to install runtime integration or runtime on one of your servers on Prem in order for it to actually work. So they've made a lot of changes since. Actually, with the runtime agent, it's actually a lot easier to install because you don't have to do it via. You don't have to download agents and install it via DOS or via the command line anymore. Let's have a look at that. Let's grab that. Here's the database migration service. So as you can see, I've got a bunch of them set up here that I did before. But in here, I can start migrations and monitor them. if you're doing it from on-prem, you won't be able to unless you have this enabled, and this is actually online. Then I can go and start. I can say where I want, what type of migration I want to do. SQL Server to SQL Managed Instance. I can specify where my files are. So if they are on the file share on the network, or if they're in Azure Blob Storage, I just choose Blob Storage because it's a lot easier. Unless if you're going to do the network file share, your on-prem network already has to be extended into Azure, and all the relevant access has to be there. Right. Offline mode, it's a bit easier because it's basically like a traditional restore. What it does in online mode, it keeps the databases in sync, and then if you want to, this is cool if you want to do a online migration. I typically use this with business critical applications. So this lowers your downtimes to about, if you need an hour max, it will give you that, because you can then restore it, and then as soon as the restore is done, you just press cut over, and in that process, you can just change the connections in your application and Bob's your uncle, and nobody will be the wiser. So I go online, tells you what you need to check, and then I can go select. So now I'm going to go to my source. I know what my instance is. Yeah, I can go and so this is my resource group storage account. Which folder? And then I can pull this database anything I want. Right, so now it's going to go pick up the database in there, or the target database that I want in that folder. So I can go and use Azure Storage Explorer, and I can see what's in there. Right, so this is that stuff folder. Here's my storage account. And this is the database backup that's in there. So the resource group, storage account, the blob containers I'm using, the folder in that blob container, and the database. Right? Now I'm stating the database I'm selecting, my target. So SQL Managed Instance is my target where I'm migrating from. The migration mode. Blob container is my data source. And then the migration service I'm using, resource account, all that stuff. Right? Cool. So now it's going to go and run. Okay, cool. So will tell you also how long it's going to take. But that one failed there, and it told me because you basically have to make sure that there's only one backup in that folder, which sucks, but that's the way to do it. So you can just set up that for multiple. Yeah. Right. So that's Azure Database or Database Migration Services. Database Migration Projects. Right. I don't have any at the moment because they've changed that how you do it. So for that, okay, so we're gonna have to wait for that to finish anyways. How long that's going to run. So that one failed because there's multiple databases in my one container. So if I could do I do this, it will go and delete it, soft delete it for 7 days. And then, okay. We have to set this up again from scratch. Right, so they did not give you a opportunity to rerun it. You have to reset up everything. So if we just look at one that was this for, so that was also from another VM that I did it, copied it over. Let's just show you. We'll normally show you all the other details here. And yeah. Azure Migrate, hold on, before we get to the last bit. So Azure Migrate is built into Azure Data Services as well as Azure. So it leverages the DMS that I showed you earlier. And then restores, works the same way as I showed you. But it also does the assessment for you. Anything that will take anything from SQL 2008. And then so this is the entire process that we went through. That shows you how to do it. That's how it works, right? Which you want to touch on a architecture level. And then there's also Azure Migrate. So have you guys heard of Azure Migrate or used it in any way? Oh, it's the Azure Migrate. Now we're running out of time. So cool. Azure Migrate, you can do an assessment and all that stuff. For your services, you can see what your migration goals are, and then you can just download and install this appliance on your server. So you can go create project. And you can go create one. So what this will do is allow you to download stuff, the appliance on your server. So there's certain requirements that you need for it. So I'm just going to go ahead while that thing deploys. It will you then download this file, and then you can just say run this PowerShell, and now it's going to run a script to deploy this for you. And so you can choose where you're coming from. So I'm going to go. If I wouldn't use this for VMware, because VMware you can use AWS or Azure VMware services. You can just use vSphere on-prem and fail over to Azure, and it doesn't even take long. Obviously, size dependent, but the demos we did on it and the stuff we've been testing with, so it's very good. Right, so you can do Hyper-V, physical, so out of any other cloud, or on-prem, or Azure Stack, which has been renamed Azure Local now. That's also an appliance that gives about $250,000 for that appliance. And that allows you to run Azure services on-prem. Or if you don't want to, and you have like hardware, you can just go and do, there's another Azure, I won't get to the name of it, but there's another that you can run. So I'm going to choose option 2. It's going to ask me questions. Yes, Azure Public. So that's the public data centers that we see. Yes, I want the public endpoint. And I've chosen the one. Yes, go for it. So now it's going to install our agent on there. So that's going to take 2 to 3 minutes. So now once that is set up, you can go through this process here to discover what you have. So I'm saying using appliance. That's yes, it's Hyper-V. So now I can say what my appliance name is. It's going to test that now. Then I can say generate a key. Right, so now it's going to go generate that key for me. Whatever you do, copy this key, put it somewhere safe, because once you've downloaded this, you need to go and configure it. So that's this portion here is this script here. Right? So that is going to deploy. So you're going to need that key and copy it. Once that is done, so also look at the prerequisites of what you need. So where you're downloading this on and where you're installing it on. Right? So you're going to need at least 80 gigs and 8 CPUs and 16 gigs of memory. And then you can configure it. And once it's configured, you can then start doing the migration. And then from a Azure data point of view, so this is Data Studio. So I've got the extension installed. I connect it to my local server. Once I'm there, I can look at my dashboard. So you install the extensions, right? Well, no, I don't want it. There's extensions. So I can look at what I have installed. So this is what makes Azure Data Studio nice is you can run it on any OS. Right, so there's a whole bunch of others. I've got Azure Migrate. So Azure Arc is what you can install or use if you want to migrate services, Azure services, or run Azure services on your own hardware. So that is let's just go down here. So here's the Azure Migrate extension. Cool. So I can now see I've got a migration in progress. I've got 2 completed, which is awesome. So let's just go look at what we have there. Restoring. And I can see what the target is, where it's going, how long it's going to take. Not when it's finished, and it's an online migration. I can then also look at what was completed, which just shows you basically this just features the API. There's an API call to the portal. But new migration, we go through here and say go select the database for assessment. Let's do that boy. No, I don't want to do that. Now it's going to assess the database. So it's going to give you my options. Right? I can say this one. I can say start data collection. And I was going to perform an assessment for me. And while it's running that, so now it's telling me what needs review. The next. So I can select my target, manage instance, my database. Cool, is my findings from my assessment. Trace flags are not supported, so I have to disable the trace flags. Those 2 trace flags before I migrate, which is fine. Yeah, I can then say, cool, this is my tenant. We'll go and log in. Just so my card is there. I don't know why this thing is now wanting to be issues. Oh, this. That's just all the places I have access to. Cool. So it picks up my subscription, my resources. Right, so now I go to next. Online or offline migration, so something that we saw, stored in a container. And now the same thing. But it will just populate everything by itself. And now you can migrate to manage instance. Then you start the migration, and that will then populate here on the dashboard. What's in progress? Oh, and that's how you get to modernize the SQL managed instance. So just key takeaways. Plan your migration. Do an assessment first. If you don't want to migrate now and you're having anything older than SQL 2012, use Azure Arc. That will allow you at least some security features so that you get updates that you'll get. Use Azure database or database migration service to queue all your migrations. It's going to bring down the time that you have to do it with it. And you can also use Azure Data Studio just to do an assessment, a quick assessment. Otherwise, you can use a third-party tool like Unified Cloud. That's also built in as an option under tools in Azure Migrate. Then you just link it to your subscription and it will help you build a business case and all that good stuff as to why you need to migrate to cloud, to Azure Managed Instance.